So what is the practical application for us here at Piney Grove Baptist Church in August of 2011? Like Jesus and like my story with Joshua, the homeless person, I think we all have a few Canaanites in our lives that we just don't want to extend love or grace or hospitality to. Think about that for a moment. Who's the first person that comes to your mind? Who is your Canaanite woman? Who have you refused to give the crumbs of your table to? There are people we come in contact with each and every day who just desperately want the crumbs of our table. They see our lives and our families and our faith, and they just want a small piece of it. But how often do we deny them? Maybe it's the coworker that's hard to get along with. Maybe it's a crooked boss. Maybe it's the person down the street who doesn't speak English. Or maybe it's the new kid sitting in the cafeteria all by herself. It might be somebody who's hurt you in the past. And I think that if some of us were truly honest today, we could say that maybe our Canaanite, the person we do not want to love today, is sitting in the same sanctuary. Maybe on the same pew. If we're really honest, a lot of our American churches are like the Baptist minister who got stranded on an unknown island. And years later, when a rescue team finally makes it to that island, they find 3 buildings. And they ask him, what tell us about these buildings? And the man says, well, this first one is just a small shack that I built to keep myself out of the elements when I first arrived. And they walk around and they get to the second building. This is a big, beautiful, elaborate building. And the rescue team is amazed at how this man was even able to build such a building in the wilderness. And he says, well, this is the first Baptist church of the island that I built to minister to the natives when I first arrived. And I'm like, that is great. Well, what about that one? And they walk across the street and there's an even bigger building. And he says, well, this is the second Baptist church of the island I built when I couldn't get along with people at the first Baptist church anymore. Yet Jesus calls us to follow him in loving everyone, in extending grace to everyone, and extending hospitality to everyone. Today, Jesus comes to us with the story of a time when he did not want to do, or it seems like he did not want to do, what he was called to do. Yet when Jesus stayed faithful to the calling of his heavenly Father, there is a beautiful and glorious collision in which he and the Canaanite woman were changed forever. Through this story, we're called to do the same. There are people in our lives who desperately want the crumbs of our table. Just a small piece of what we have in Jesus. Today, Jesus calls us to follow him and travel across town or across the office or across the cafeteria or across the sanctuary and invite everyone to our table. We're going to move into a time of response this morning as Paul and Dawn comes. Today you might be thinking, Alex, where's the love and the grace this morning? You're usually about the love and the grace that God has for us. And that's here today, most certainly. If today maybe you feel like the Canaanite. Today maybe you feel like the rejected. Today maybe you feel unlovable. Know that God's grace and love is just as much here for you today as it is any day. But we believe that whenever we encounter the love and the grace of God, it calls us to extend that love and grace to others and that hospitality to others. And that's what today is about. So as we move into this time of response, the altar is open. I'll be down front to pray with anyone who has a need, whether it even pertains to the sermon or not. But maybe, just maybe, instead of an altar or a prayer, you just need to walk across the room and put your hand on someone's shoulder and say, I love you. I'm still here for you. And even though I don't always act like it, I do love you. God, thank you so much for what you're doing in our church. Thank you so much for this morning. God, we thank you for this story that tells us of a time when you felt very, very human, when perhaps you did not want to do what was called.